Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines. Available for download on all major digital platforms.
You know, I've been doing this work for 45 years. And over that time, I invented my own technique. I began to find out new things that came in that nobody else had ever discovered. So big and so important, so we called it QHHT, because it's way beyond past life regression. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years. Well, as part of this technique, the very first thing that you do is take the client into a past life. Past life is just the very, very beginning. Then we go to this great power that I work with. To please take advantage of the training that is now available online. You can find it through my website, dolorescannon.com.
The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now listening to the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with hypnotherapist and author Nancy Canning, who draws on her 35 years of experience helping her clients move beyond their limiting beliefs and into finding their life's purpose. In 2002, Dr. Michael Newton invited Nancy to become a founding board member of the Society for Spiritual Regression. Nancy held the positions of treasurer and training regression coordinator for over 3 years. Now, during that time, she helped create an intensive training program for other hypnotherapists and co-taught these trainings nationally and internationally. As of spring 2013, Nancy Canning has led over 750 people into their life between lives journey and has led well over 2,000 clients into their past lives. Well, Nancy Canning, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you, Kevin.
It's a privilege to have you on, and your work is just fascinating, and the more I've delved into it, the dimensions of questions have opened up, and we just don't have enough time. It's not fair.
Well, there's always more time. You know, one of the nice things about life, and especially like we were saying with the internet, there's always more.
Exactly. So we will get you back on again. Now, just for the audience, just tell us a bit about yourself and your first past life regression that I believe took place in 1982.
Yes, and it was spontaneous. I actually didn't believe in past lives. They called it reincarnation back then in the early 80s, and I had nothing to do with it. It wasn't part of my world. And I was in California, it's so California, in a hot tub with my therapist, who was a friend, and also his son-in-law. So there were 3 of us, and I spontaneously started seeing this more than a picture in my mind. It was a Japanese girl with a bright blue blouse in a ditch with her little 7-year-old brother. She was 10. And samurai soldiers were marching by. I knew all of it. And I started screaming out loud, that's not my nature. And it shook me to my core, because I knew that girl was me. I can feel it now as I talk about it. And I thought I was making it up, and I was really grateful that my friend Joe was there and kept talking me through it. What do you see? Keep bringing it out, bringing it out. And it shook me and changed my world because I had to figure out what was going on. So I started reading books. There weren't that many back then, but there were some. And the whole new world opened up for me because I then, as I delved into it, I went on into psychic training after that at a Psychic Institute and began to read past lives as a psychic. As the years went on through the 80s, that was what I was doing a lot of the time.
Because I believe you also met Dr. Michael Newton as well.
That was about 15 years later. So I'd done a lot of past lives, nearly 20 years of them. And then I read his book. Journey of Souls. I had just moved back east and read his book. And while I was reading that book, halfway through it, I was recognizing some of the things I was reading just sent chills down my spine because I knew this and I didn't know that this information from the afterlife could be known. That was a whole new level of information for me. But I knew two things. I knew I was born to do this work, and I knew I just knew instinctively I could take people into the afterlife. I just needed a session with him to remember. And that was all completely on a knowing level.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I waited 2 years and was on the wait list and went to California again to have a session with him. Came back to Cape Cod where I had moved to and started doing that work. And that was in 2000. So it's been 15 years now.
Wow.
It's fabulous. It's just phenomenal work.
It's just incredible. It really is. And I mean, I suppose, and the training that you've had, that's very important. You put yourself through sort of disciplined training in one sense, didn't you?
Yes, I'm my best investment. I'm my retirement plan, I think is the way it should be, because a lot of master's degrees. So I did 3 years of psychology just to get that background in graduate school. And then intensive past life work, and then lots of internal 4-year programs here, 2-year programs there, a lot of my own inner work, because I firmly believe that the more I clear myself out and raise my consciousness, the more I can take people in deeper into levels of their own consciousness, because that's just how it works. The clearer I am, the more I can do for others. So, and I'm still in that. I'm still in training. I'm still learning and growing myself. And all of it, I see the difference now in the level of sessions that I do now compared to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The clients now, as they go into the past lives, are having profound experiences. They're worn out after the hour and a half because they've delved so deeply into that other life, whichever one they go to. And even more so than in the afterlife. When we go into it's a 4-hour session. So people are in the afterlife, that super conscious state, for about 3.5 hours. And experiencing absolutely their soul essence, who they are and why they've come here, how they're doing, making sense of a life that might not make sense from a human viewpoint.
Yeah, and it's probably quite unexplainable in a sense, going to that state, that loving state, that unconditional loving state.
We use those words here on Earth, in the human form, love and unconditional love and peace. But it's when we get into that superconscious state, that state of being in the afterlife, that we experience it. And it's different than what we experience here, because here on Earth, there are conditions. We're people, we have stuff. There's conditions here that we put on ourselves and others. But when you step into that higher level of consciousness, that's why they call it returning home. It really feels like you're home. You're home to yourself. You come back to who you really are. It's really a natural feel. It's uplifting. There's not words. As you say, there's not words. Our words fail it. But it's a very known state to us on a soul level.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a few past life regressions myself, and I'm the first time I've admitted this on my show, but I've just started channeling as well. So I'm going to that place quite often. I'm working with a circle to develop this, and it really is. it's just an incredible, peaceful place to be. And you like you say, there's that deep knowing that this is who you truly are. This is where you came from.
And who you are on that soul level starts to make sense to who you show up as then in this life, and why you've taken on some of the challenges, or also what comes so naturally. You all of a sudden understand, well, of course I can do whatever it is that we do naturally, because that's who I am. It's not the personality, but the soul of this is who I am. For myself, what I'm really clear on now is who I am is a guide. I facilitate taking people into their true self. So of course I'm doing it here on earth, because how could I not? Kind of thing. So that's how, when we do things really naturally and we're really drawn to it, and it's just something that comes to us and through us, it's nice to know, well, of course, because first of all, you've probably done it before, and second of all, it's who you are. So it's nice to validate that. Sometimes people kind of, they just don't give a lot of credence to something they do really well and easily, because they think they have to work hard at something to make it valuable, rather than acknowledging, no, this is who you are and what you've come to do and be.
Absolutely.
So it's great. It's a channeling. And it's fun to take on new skills as we keep aging and growing. It's fun to do new things, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well, that's part of the life lessons of being here, isn't it? To take those lessons and grow from them. If we don't get them right the first time, they just keep coming back to repeat themselves until we do.
Yeah. I know. I'm on my 5th life with this same lesson of mine. One of the major lessons. That was one of the biggest gifts I got when I had my own spiritual regression back in 2000. Was one of my elders was very clear to me there, and he basically said, you've been working on this for 5 lifetimes, which is opening up my heart, really stepping more intimately into relationships with people on everyday life, being more open. He goes, you've been working on this for 5 lifetimes. How long do you want to keep doing it? And it puts everything in perspective. You suddenly go, oh, I don't want to keep doing this. I want to go on to something different. So that means learn the lesson, do the work this time, take the steps, open up and do what's within us to do. Because we keep repeating and repeating, and it's the fear that stops us. Every time it's that fear that shows up in all its many disguises that will stop us and make us think we can't do and be who we've come here to be and do.
Absolutely, and I will say as well that you are intuitive yourself, and you talked about the psychic training. I think that's what makes you stand out from some others as well, in my opinion. That's helped a lot.
It helps tremendously. And, sometimes we don't know why we're doing things as we're doing them. And then 20 years later, we've got this perspective that says, oh, no wonder it was so important for me to go through all those years of psychic training, to do all that work, because it's foundational now. When I'm working with someone, I don't read auras anymore. I'm not doing it that way, but there's a knowing and a sensing, and I trust this intuition. And I'll get answers. And I remember with one woman years ago doing a Life Between Lives, she lived in Texas, and there was actually someone who lived 100 miles from her who also does the Life Between Lives work, but she was so clear from her guidance that she had to come to me, and she kept fighting it because it was much more expensive to travel and all of that, but she did. She came to me. And as it turned out that in the session, all of a sudden I psychically saw, I just knew it to the core of my being, what she had been working on and where she had been stuck on a soul level for quite a while. And when I said it, she burst into tears. I burst into tears. It was like a soul opening. It was phenomenal. Changed everything for her, I know. And that's why she had to come to me, because I have that experience with the patterns of looking at belief systems, which is the other work I do. I look at patterns of what do we keep repeating, not only in this lifetime, but lifetimes. So at times like that, I'm really grateful for the work I put in it back in the 80s, because it comes in to be invaluable now with clients, to be able to point out their life lessons to them, to help them see things from a different perspective. Because sometimes it's hard for us. We're stuck in the middle of our own lives and we can't see the bigger picture. So it helps to have someone else point it out, and then they go, oh, well, yeah, of course. So yes, the psychic training and being intuitive it's just a part of who I am. I'm grateful to have that, to bring that for clients.
Now, Nancy, how does past life regression work?
So the way it works, first of all, it's not what people expect. Even when people come and go, I don't have any expectations. At the end, they go, that's not what I expected. So the hypnosis, you relax. So hypnosis is the relaxation. I lead you through, you're awake, you're alert, your eyes are closed, you're laying back. So you never lose track of who you are in present time. But at the same time, as you step into the past life, there's a scene that opens up in your mind. You could be inside or outside, and we start to describe it. And as you begin to describe it, you have a sense of it. You can have a knowing. I'll ask questions like the age you are and your name, and the answers just pop into mind. Your logical mind may not know where they're coming from, but they're just coming from within you. And you start to fill in information. You have a sense, a knowing, you'll hear answers. And we begin to move through that life. I'll have you go to the evening meal, who's there. So we begin slowly to figure out, who are you? What's your personality? What kind of a person are you? Your age. And then we start going through like the teenage years and go to a significant event in your 20s. How old are you? What's going on? So even though I'll say, go to your 20s, I always ask how old, because you could go to your 40s. I don't have any power or control to make you go to your 20s. It's a suggestion, and yet you'll go to where you need to go. I did a session with a woman the other day when she was in her teens. I said, go to your 20s. And instead, I think she went to her 30s. I don't remember exactly. But she had totally skipped over a really important event in which it was the death of a grandmother. Because in that lifetime, she had so squashed it down. She had so denied and suppressed all those feelings. She was a suicide. She ended up in that past life committing suicide. It was only after she had left the body. So you go through the death in the past life. You breathe, you release, you're out of the body. And now you can look back from the soul's perspective to see what were the lessons you came in to learn. How did you do? And most important, how is that life impacting you? Why did you go back to that life? And it was then that she remembered her grandmother's death, but she had to be in the soul state before she could begin to open up the emotions from that lifetime. So people feel emotions, they feel sensations, they have knowings, and sometimes they're not at all dramatic. They're just normal lives, but still there's love, there's challenges, there's whatever it was you came in to learn. So you get to spend time really delving into that life to see, who were you, how did you show up, what were the decisions you made, and how well did you live that life on a soul level from what you came in to do. So it's really dramatic in that it's intense to do a whole lifetime in a matter of 45 minutes or an hour, something like that. One thing too, though, that is interesting, I found that if in that past life you weren't really very present emotionally, meaning some people just don't show up very much in life. In the past life, it's hard to get much information because you weren't there to begin with. So it's not as visual, it's maybe not as vivid, it's not emotional. You're just kind of aware of that life because you weren't really very present to begin with. And I found that to be consistent. It's kind of fascinating. The way you experience a past life is in alignment with the way you lived it as well.
Isn't that fascinating? Right, okay. Yeah, I've not heard that before. So and an important thing as well is that, the way that we can improve our life in the present moment now, because there's a lot of people that talk about present moment as well, which is very important. But by exploring the afterlife as well, we can bring in information that can help us live this life in a better way.
Yeah. Because, when we're more in touch with who we are, our soul essence, that never leads us astray. That's only based in love. That's truth. That's our straight course, so to speak. So the more we do our work and become aware of that connection we have to our own self, our higher self, the more we're going to make decisions that are in alignment with that which is what we've come to be and do. So we end up literally in better shape, so to speak, because we have a sense of fulfillment. We're not letting fear stop us as much. I'm not saying there's no fear, but we can breathe and we can learn to move through it more quickly because there's like this true north on the compass of this is who I've come to be. So I'm going to go be that. Because it's who I've come to be. I don't want to get to the end of this life and think what a waste. See, that's one of the values of the past life. When people have gone into other lifetimes and they get out of that life and their first thought was, what a waste. That's profound. That's profound because there's something in them that says, I don't want to waste this one. I don't want to be afraid and hold back. And then at the end of this life go, oh, again I wasted. And it's never a waste, but it can be that sense of I just didn't do all or even close to what I really had intended. So yes, absolutely. Being in touch with who we are and doing this sort of work helps us very much. It's all about this life. This is the only thing that matters. Here and now, and whatever we can do to help us make better decisions and choices and to move forward, that's all beneficial. And that's what my work, that's what I want it to be, to help people to really have a higher quality of life.
That's really profound what you've just said there. Yeah, we can so easily, be a lie to ourselves sometimes on the way we really want to be living our life and doing the things that we love to do, because that's a gorgeous part of someone when they're doing what they love to do.
And we're supposed to. There's some, old-fashioned thinking of we're supposed to suffer. Well, no, pain is normal, suffering is optional. Something like that is the way the saying goes. We're meant to be happy. And what makes us happy is following our heart, following that which is our soul's calling within us. And there's a happiness, there's an inner joy. It doesn't mean life is easy or without obstacles or challenges. That's all part of life. But there's a different quality when we have this sense of satisfaction rather than this huge weight on our shoulders of what we know we should be doing or what we really want to do and what we wish we could be doing, and we're not. That weight really causes problems. Emotionally, mentally, it turns physical. It shows up in our body because we're holding back from being who we've come to be. So the here and the now, the present moment is what it's all about. And this other work helps us to improve how we're showing up in every moment of the day.
Yeah. Absolutely. And for those who have not done a regression before, it's anybody can be regressed, but some people, I suppose, are a bit more challenging to put under. Can the mind and the ego get in the way sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. The mind, the ego gets in the way. What happens is people become afraid sometimes that they're not going to be able to do it, or that they're going to lose control, or they have many times what gets in the way is their own pain from childhood in this lifetime. So it keeps them from being able to trust themselves. There's all kinds of things that can go on that make it more difficult. The other thing, though, that I found is if someone is going into a really difficult past life, a tough one, there can be some resistance going into it because though they don't consciously know that life on a subconscious level, it's already known. Excuse me. And so there can be more of a block going into it because the thinking is, it was bad enough the first time. Why would I go back to it again? I don't want to go there. And yet there's healing that happens by going into a tough life. It can be released. Whatever it is that's perhaps stuck there can be released. And then there's freedom. It's a real healing cathartic. So I find both ways. Either it's a tough life, so there's some type of resistance going in, or they're just unable to relax and calm the mind enough to allow them to trust the process. But most people, I'm going to say, I've never done percentages, 90%, 95%. Most everyone gets into the past life. There are some who don't, but it's not a big majority of them with me. Most everyone is able to go in.
And they're always going to see you at the right time in their life as well. It's all divine timing.
It's all divine timing. When some people get, they've gotten maybe a gift certificate for it, it can take them a year or two. Or they plan, I often hear people, when they finally contact me, they go, I've been carrying your name around for a year. And I go, I know, wasn't time. Or if they have to delay it for any reason, I just don't even fight any of that because I go, it's divine timing. It's my personal belief that the spiritual regression really is not exactly our idea, not only our idea, but also our elders are calling us. They want to give us information. It's a two-way street. So I absolutely believe in divine timing and divine order. Even when it doesn't look like it, I think it's there.
And with past life regression as well, a lot of traumas can be sort of healed as well, can't they? How has that sort of been with yourself, where these patients have come to you and with severe problems in a sense, and then they've left cured in over time?
It all depends. It's not a magic bullet. So I never want people to think that, because people have come thinking, oh, this is a magic bullet. One session, all these huge traumas from this lifetime will be gone. Nope. This is one step that absolutely can help to release the energy that's locked in. And sometimes people have to do other work as well, of course, but absolutely. Traumas from death, because I get a lot of people who are healers. It's who I am. I'm a healer as well, and I do healing work, and others who've done it. Well, think of all the ways healers and people who've been in the spiritual movement in other lives have been killed. Beheadings and just all the different things that have happened, the witch hunts back years ago, and the Inquisition, and all of that plays a role, so that if it's something like that that's keeping you from being who you've come to be this lifetime, to stepping out in the world, to speak up. That's a big one. For having been killed in past lives, for having spoken up your truth, of having been different. That's a big, terrible fear. It will keep you from speaking up over and over and over again, and your life will seem to fall apart every time you step into trying to be who you've come to be this lifetime, because there's something inside of you pushing you, pulling you, and yet there's this huge fear from the past dragging you back. So absolutely, past lives and in between lives can help to release that, to gain an understanding of it, to release the energy. And then you still have to go do the work to move through the fear, but you won't have all the old stuff hanging on to you. Past lives are especially good, though, for phobias, something kind of simple rather than huge, long-term traumas, but simple fear of drowning, fear of heights, fear of this, fear of that, bridges. There's all different kinds of things. I've worked with people. Loud noises, and they almost always go back to a past life death. We take them through the death, they clear that, and it's gone. It's gone. And same thing with pains, like a gunshot wounds or stabbings. Oftentimes those will match up to where people have had physical problems in this lifetime. And that can absolutely help to heal. At least energetically, they might still have to have some medical work done in this lifetime if it's to that situation, but clearing the past life absolutely helps them to do it. I know on my website, I talk about my own traumatic past lives when I had to have surgery back 5, 6 years ago. And I was traumatized. There was no way I could have surgery. I was absolutely terrorized at the thought. And I did the past life work and cleared that. And then I was able to go to the surgery with twice, both hips, absolutely no problem. The second time, there was no energy from something that had been so terrorizing that it was like, oh, just put it on the calendar and let me know when it's time, I'll show up. So I personally have experienced the release and the relief of having, let go of past life trauma because it was so impacting in this lifetime and keeping me from doing something I absolutely had to do. So it can be really, really healing to release something from that lifetime, another one.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of my past life regressions was I went, well, apparently I went as far back as Atlantis. Do you ever get anyone that's sort of gone far back at all? Or
once in a while, not so much, because most of mine, many times the suggestion, what I always give is the past life having a significant impact on this current life. So unless there's something still unresolved from way long time ago, the Lemuria and Atlantis lives, that won't come up so much because of the way I give the suggestion. It's more likely people go to the last several hundred years because it's meant to be more therapeutic. But with a different suggestion, yeah, absolutely, people can go back to those earlier lives long ago. Once in a while, people will go back to the time of Christ, but mostly it's the last couple of hundred years because the other ones we've pretty well resolved over the, decades and decades and lifetimes, we may have resolved a lot of those issues. So there's nothing really still charged in them. But sometimes people want to go back to those just because they know it's a part of who they are. And so it's really helpful to go back to those, the old ones.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Obviously, we hear about, soulmates, soul partners, but sometimes these can be our worst enemies, in disguise, in a sense, that we've agreed to come down with on this level to learn lessons from.
Yes. Absolutely. Soulmate doesn't mean you're going to love them forever. It means on the spirit world, as souls, absolutely you love forever. And because that love is so deep and we're wanting to help each other learn lessons, sometimes someone will volunteer to play a really difficult role in your life so that you can learn a lesson. And they're learning too. They also get to learn from it. But it can be a really tough one for them. So they'll come in and be your nemesis, your worst nightmare. And you would think, I never want to see this person again. Not knowing that once you get to the spirit world, you're going to understand that there was nothing there but love. It was all meant for you to learn. And so anytime there's anyone in our life who's a real irritation, take it as an opportunity to grow and learn and go, okay, what about that person is really upsetting me? What's mine? Because it's not about them. It's about they're just helping to reflect something in you that you've come to learn. So, easier said than done, I know, but it's still what we do. We get to learn from those people. And so the sooner we can learn it, the sooner that irritation goes away because it's all our perception. Relationships can absolutely change instantly when we really have let go of whatever it is that's ours to learn and to grow from in that relationship.
And if someone wants to come to get a reading with yourself, a regression with yourself, does their religious background matter at all?
No, I've worked with people in probably most all of the major religions of the world, including no religion. I have people who come who are very skeptical of all this. They come admitting, going, I don't know if I believe in any of this, but I want to see, I want to try it out. Because the thing is, the religion is for this lifetime, and it's this dogma for this life. But when you go into another lifetime, you could very well have been some other religion, likely, or you go into the spirit world and there's no religion. That's all man-made. So once you're into the spirit world, it's all about spirit and love, but there's no There's no religion. There's no separation there. We're just souls, all one. And so it can be really helpful going into other lifetimes in which you were in another religion, because it gives you more of an understanding for this lifetime, to understand that, oh, that's just what they're learning. That's just who they're being this lifetime. So I haven't found it to be a hindrance. The only hindrance is many times with someone, if they were quite in a religion this lifetime, such as Catholic or some of the fundamentals, who don't believe in past lives. So we have to get through that, because they know they want to go to the past life, but some of that early church programming can get in the way for them. So they'll go to another life and perhaps learn more about why they chose to come into this lifetime in that religion, because it's a choice. It's all part of the soul's learning. There's reasons behind the religions we choose to come into, or non-religion. We come into some families where it's absolutely not even an issue. So it's all part of the soul's journey. It's all part of the learning.
And naturally as well. I mean, we're very used to sort of self-trancing in a way. I mean, I know when I'm sat in front of my computer sometimes, I think, well, hang on a minute. Oh, were you gone there just for a few minutes? What have you been doing? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And so we get to just, we keep coming back. It seems kind of like a one-track song, but if we keep realizing, okay, what am I here doing this lifetime? Who am I? What have I come to be and do? And then every little thing, even when we just go off into, other kinds of thinking or lose ourselves for a while, it's all part of the learning. We bring ourselves back to the present time and go, oh, that's not how I want to show up. Sometimes with world events, we find emotions coming up in us that we wouldn't prefer not to have, so we get to look at that. One of my the most profound past life I ever did, and I don't know if I've written about it or not, was the barbarian life, 1,000 years ago, who knows the time. I got to see my capacity for violence in that lifetime. It shook me. It was a huge, long past life journey that I did when I was still in hypnosis training. I was very new to this, so that was back in '98 I did this. I came out of that fundamentally changed, because I saw that ability to be violent against other people, and I could understand it more. And then I saw the repercussions of the next lifetimes, where then I was on the receiving end of violence. So an understanding coming into this lifetime of, it's all been a balancing of, how do I not be violent against myself? Meaning that kind of violent thoughts. So it doesn't have to be physical violence. It can be our own thinking, that we get nuanced as we grow along our spiritual path. The lessons get more and more nuanced is the best word, I think. And so instead of being big, gross violence, we're learning little things like, oh, that thought I just had, that wasn't kind. That was an unkind, violent thought against somebody else. So we learn to our lessons, and it's still the same lesson as 1,000 years ago. It's just showing up very differently now, and that's how you're making progress. So anytime we find ourselves going into a place we don't want to be, we bring ourselves back and go, yeah, I don't want to be that. Who have I come to be? And what work do I need to keep doing to remember I've come to be a certain way. I want to be this person that I am. I want to be in integrity, or however it is you want to be. It's a personal choice.
And
so does that, mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Does that answer what you were talking about?
It does beautifully. And some people, you look at them from the outside, and the life looks very mundane. But with no judgment. I mean, that does sound a bit judgmental. But for the mundane lives, do you think that they're sort of living their life's mission, or it's very judgmental, isn't it? This question, in a sense, because who knows whether they had a past life that was really tough.
Yeah, they could be in a rest life this lifetime. I actually dated a man who. I was getting my doctorate at the time. I was going for the doctorate in psychology. He was a high school dropout, But there was a connection. It was absolutely a past life connection. He was, you could say, doing nothing with his life, which is also judgmental, but he wasn't doing much. And we had time together. I learned from a reading that this was a rest life for him. It made all the sense in the world once I knew that, because I knew him to be so capable, and yet he just wasn't doing much. But we got to have time together. I was unemployed, he was unemployed. We got to spend time together, which is what we had wanted to do in this lifetime. We wanted just a short time of being together. And then when I had the psychic reading from someone and they pointed out it was a rest life, and then I pointed that out to him, it was like a huge weight got released from his shoulders, because he knew that was the truth. And finally he understood how come he wasn't doing much this life. He wasn't meant to. And that was extraordinary, because he was killed a few years later on a motorcycle. I'm sure of it because he came to me at the moment of his death. That's the first time that had happened. And I could feel him, his light coming into my heart and letting me know, saying thank you for having been in his life. So that was a big healing for him to know he was here to rest. He wasn't here to do much. So that's the opposite of the fast trackers, the people who are squeezing 4 lifetimes into one, trying to get everything done, for the people who are here resting. But then all the rest in between, it can look mundane, like normal life. But perhaps what they're here to learn is, how do you have love no matter what? Or how do you show up for someone else this lifetime? Or how do you create and they're not doing it? So there's no way to know. And we certainly don't know by looking at a person's job how far along their spiritual path they are. The two are not related, as far as I'm concerned.
No, definitely not. And that's a very beautiful story you just shared there as well.
Yeah, that was something, that was quite an experience with him when he came at the point of death, and I knew. And it was like, thank you. And it's like, it just makes all of it so much more real all the time when someone has passed and then they come to you and you know that they're right there with you. And then they're off in their soul's journey.
No.
So yeah, we can't judge because we don't know what people are here to learn. That's what I've learned from all these past lives. If there's one thing I've learned, it's don't judge, because you don't know what they're learning.
And in your experience, what do you think is the evolution of the soul?
I think the evolution of the soul, and really that's such a big question compared to, the little brains. Did you ever see the movie Defending Your Life?
Oh,
I love that
what
movie.
a great movie.
Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. I recommend it to anyone who wants to laugh, because they call us the little brains. And I come back to that more and more. I believe it more and more. We're little brains here. We think we're this, and we are. We're magnificent beings. We are magnificent people in all the creation that we do. And yet it's just minuscule compared to who we are on the soul level and all that it is. So I think in the evolution, as we're growing, we're changing in consciousness. It's all about this level of beingness that we are, our thinking, our consciousness, as we raise it up, as we become more and more centered and clear inside, it's reflected in our actions. And that's what consciousness is, I believe, as we're evolving, we're growing, and it looks like it's a snail's pace, because what we do in one lifetime, you can take 70, 80 years, and maybe we've gone like an inch or so to speak, because it's so much more difficult in the body to grow because of the density, the emotions, all that we are compared to just being pure spirit, that it's a slow process. But it's the one we're in, and we might as well enjoy it and do our very best, because it's not a race. There's not a distance to go. We have free will. We get to grow just as much as we want to in any lifetime. Nobody's stopping us, and nobody's making us. So we have that choice to just do nothing or to do lots, as far as listening to the call of our soul, because that's what I know for sure. Every single person has that call within them. They are a soul within the body, whether they know it or not. And They're no different than anyone else. Every person, all these billions of people on this planet, we're all from source. We're all the same here, living lesson, learning, living, growing, however it looks, and for however long we're here.
Now, Nancy, Dolores Cannon, a very famous past life regressionist, talked about the idea of imprints, that before you incarnate, you can download other people's past lives, in a sense to have a reference, for example, being a leader or other such famous person. And in some of these past lives, or life between lives, they went back to meet the elders as well. And, these elders were interested in the taste of milk chocolate just as much as they were interested in what the person had got up to in their previous life.
Yeah. I believe that anything is possible. We are so much more than this little body, this little brain that we have. It is so unlimited and vast that there is so much we don't understand. But I believe that we can bring in knowledge of other people's lives as well, because we're all one. You get into the spirit world, we're all one. We just look separate here. So why not gain from others as well? That's why sometimes one of the big things is people think, oh, I was with Jesus, or I was Mary Magdalene, or they think they were, not me, but they think that they were someone famous like that. And I tend to think that they have tapped into that consciousness of that being and think it's their own life, whereas really they've brought in that memory of that consciousness of someone else's life, and it's not necessarily them. So I don't know if that's clear, because I certainly don't have all the information on that, but I think that's what's happening. We're tapping in and then bring it in, and then in this egoic mind, we personalize it and think, oh, that was me. Well, maybe not. Maybe just we were alive at the same time as that famous person. And because I had that once with someone who thought he was Thomas Edison, but really he wasn't, because I had keep my smartphone next to me, and I can look things up really quick so I can ask questions. And it was more that he was alive at the time and perhaps knew that man, knew Thomas Edison, but that's not who he was, because he couldn't answer the questions. Some basic questions he didn't have the answers to. So that's how I knew that was not him. But he had a memory of, he could see it and feel it. So what happens sometimes in past lives is we'll see a scene and we'll be there and it's authentic, but that logical mind we talked about jumps right in and tries to make sense of it. Oh, that looks like a picture I saw from such and such. So that's one of the nuances we have to be kind of on the lookout for.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Like you say, we don't have all the answers, and that's what we're doing now, is exploring and trying to find some of those answers. And you'll never get that in a lifetime, definitely. Let's go into life between lives then. Just tell the audience just a bit about that.
So the life between lives, what happens first is a person has done a past life regression first to make sure that they know how to do hypnosis, that they're a good candidate, they've removed any blocks, they understand they're not making it up. And then we do the life between lives, which is anywhere from 4 to 4.5, sometimes 5, but that's a long session. 4 is the normal. I spend a long time getting you relaxed. So you're in deep trance, but you're still awake and alert. We go back into the last life. We briefly go through that life to get you to the death. You go through the death, which, by the way, is not scary. It's actually quite a healing journey. And then on in, you're following your soul's journey. It's a remembrance of leaving the body and going into the afterlife. And then it becomes, it's a memory of having done that before, but it's also current time, because we can ask questions about now. Because once you're in that superconscious state, there is no more time and there's no more space. So you can be anywhere, and time is meaningless at that point. So typically a person then is greeted and has that healing, that feeling of absolutely releasing the physicality of that human body and returning more and more to themselves. They feel themselves getting bigger, stronger, who they are. That's the homecoming. And then everyone's journey is different. Typically, someone will meet with their guide and review that last life to see how you did. And you get to see it from the guide's point of view as well. Typically, they'll say, how do you think you did? And then help you to see, not from the judgmental level that we tend to have. We're really hard on ourselves. But rather, we get to see how well we really did with the lessons we came in to learn. We can meet with elders, which is what people really come to the session for, because at that point, you're really in the presence of these high-level beings who know you, have known you forever, and who love you, and who are here to help and support and guide. And also to not pull any punches. There's no judgment at all, ever. I just don't see judgment, but I do see being held accountable and responsible for how we're showing up in life. So people get that experience of being in the presence of them and really getting to ask the questions of, what am I here to do? What are my lessons? Help me remember. And it's a remembering of, oh yeah, this is what I signed up for. This is who I am. And that's the real joy of this session, of the I amness, that you feel your soul sense, you experience it, you remember. It's a remembering. And you have access to all this information from this high level. So it's not the ego mind in the way anymore. It's you as the soul essence bringing in and remembering, getting answers, having the experience of being there. People often then will meet with loved ones who have died, who've passed on, and it can be so wonderful to be with them again. And also, too, that's where they will find out if there's a nemesis. Hey, what was that agreement? How come this person's in my life? What are we here for? What are we trying to learn? So one of the other things people sometimes, not everyone has a soul family, meaning some people have advanced beyond that. They're no longer hanging out with a whole group of people, but they're more like independent souls, further along. But many others have a group of souls that they love. It's their family, not their physical family in this lifetime, but their soul family. Those loved ones that they just hang out with and learn from. And so from that, they often will meld. You get to have that whole feeling of what it's like to play in spirit, to play games, to meld, to laugh, to talk. It's often with the soul family that we'll talk about that life we just had where everyone's laughing and joking because it's all known. Everything is known there, and everyone, all of your soul family knows who you were and what you went through, and can call you on it, just like good friends will. So it's a learning. It's a time of learning and growing, and sometimes we role play when we're trying to learn. There's travel. You know, that's what you're talking about, other planets. People will go to other planets and other dimensions. And, there's so much. It's so much. It's unlimited. People can do whatever they desire to do. But so much of the time, it's just that freedom. They fly, meaning they're expansive spirits and they're not limited by a physical body. And by language, it's the other thing. The language is all telepathic, so they're not limited anymore by words. It's just this knowing, sensing, feeling, experiencing. It's multidimensional. All the dimensions of who we are brought into play. And so for many people, they go because they want the information of what am I here to do and what's my life purpose. They want the information. And yet what's really profound is the being there, that being in that experience of who they are. That's what really changes them. It's that remembrance. And they also find out how come they chose their family. Why did you choose to come in as either male or female? Why did you choose your mother, your father, your siblings, husband, wife, children? Those are all the main contracts, the main agreements we have this lifetime. So how come? Why did you choose them? And it can take care of so much garbage so quickly. Oh, now I remember how come I had them come in as my sibling, da 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 da, and there it is. And you can let go of a lot of the resentments or other things you've had because you realize, no, they're just playing the role they agreed to play. Nothing personal.
No.
So, and it can also, with one woman I remembered, she got to see her son, who is alive now, but very troubled, has lots of problems, but she met him as a spirit because we leave our energy on the other side as well. We don't bring all of us with us into the body. It changed everything for her. When she saw who her son really is, nothing at all with the disabilities, strong, vibrant soul. It changed her because now when she looks and communicates to her son, she has a different image of who he really is. It can be very healing to see who someone really is, not who their personality is.
Oh, that must be just incredible. Just to try to imagine that it's very difficult. It's on a completely different state of awareness, and I'm guessing as well. It's just as real as this now.
Yeah. It's more real.
More real.
It's more real in one respect of you just know it. You're experiencing it and you know it to be real. And it's that soul's knowing so that there's not the mind in the way of questioning it. So it's very real.
Yeah.
And profound for sometimes for some people those things it's always profound for people, but sometimes it can be that kind of one little thing like that of seeing someone they love in a whole different light that changes everything from them and her son's life, because she will now behold him differently, and that energy of being able to affirm who he really is can call that out of him as well.
And when these patients are or clients, sorry, are speaking to the elders, have you ever sort of tried to communicate and ask questions to the elders through them?
I don't do it for me. I'm really clear on that. I ask questions. I have clients bring questions, so I will ask questions, and sometimes I'll see something about the elders may be trying to explain something to them that they're not seeing, but I see it, so I'll explain it. Or I'll have them ask a certain question, or sometimes I know the elders are laughing. I sense it. I'm sensing psychically, I'm there with them. And the client often won't say anything, and I'll just start laughing, going, so are the elders laughing at you? And they'll go, yes, because it's all in love. But I don't ever ask the elders questions for me, because I have this real strong call it a work ethic. It's not my session. So I'm not trying to gain information for me. I want to support them fully in getting whatever is for them. One time, though, I did have a client say, bring a message through for me, which was most unusual, because I'm not part of the session. I'm not supposed to be part of it. I'm the facilitator. And I had tried to have the Life Between Lives when I was out in California a year or two ago, and I couldn't find anyone to do it. All the doors kept getting closed in my face. And it was, 6-8 months later with a session back in Cape Cod where the woman said, oh, they've told you it's not time. They say it's not time for you to go to the afterlife yet for a visit. They'll let you know when you're allowed in. And I go, oh. So once in a while that will happen, like once or twice in all of these years. But otherwise, it's the client session. It stays focused on what do they want to know, what's for their highest good. And I learn from that. I learn so much just by being in the presence of these people taking this extraordinary journey.
But having that experience, I suppose, was validation for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And it was for her, too, because with that one woman who brought the message through for me, it's like she knew she didn't know what was going on in my life. So it was validating for her to know she was getting real information as well.
Incredible. That is, it's just lovely, isn't it? It's beautiful. Very beautiful.
It is. There's often tears but it's not sad tears. It's because this body can hardly contain the love. The soul's bigness and love is sometimes too much to contain, and so we just cry from a way to release, to be all that we are. So that's quite common. And laughter. We laugh in the spirit world too. It's not serious.
Well, no.
It's life.
Yeah, and that's an important point, that you need to have fun down here as well. I mean, I mean, a lot of people that call themselves spiritual, yet they seem to live a sort of strict lifestyle for that. And I'm like, well, hang on. One thing that's happened to me recently with the channeling was you need to have more fun. This is not what it's about.
Yeah.
And I've
We're supposed
learned
to have
that.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. But then, obviously, there's no judgmentalness where these people go. But what about people who've committed suicide then?
So with suicide, and of course knowing, here's my disclaimer, I don't have all the answers. I have my life experience. So suicide, I've taken people into past lives in which they did suicide. There was one particular case that is still the most profound, and it's probably been 12 years since I did this session with her. There was a woman who went into a past life in which she had a little daughter, 2, 3 years old, who died very early. And this woman went into the depths of despair and couldn't recover from it, went into absolute hopelessness and committed suicide. So in the past life, so we take her through that. She gets out of the body and she's going, oh no, what have I done? She was reluctant, but it was a life between lives. So she goes on into the spirit world and was reluctant and fearful in many ways to meet with the elders and her guide, her teacher, because of what she had done with suicide. Come to find out, they were extremely proud of her because as a soul, what she does is she vibrates the energy of hope. It's who she is. She gathers with other souls, other spirits, and they together vibrate. They literally radiate, they emanate hope, that energy, that vibration and frequency. And that's what they do. That's their mission of who they are. And she was willing in that lifetime to go totally against her nature, into depths of despair, into utter hopelessness, so that she could, oh, I cry when I think of it. So she was willing to experience that on a human level, so that on the soul level, she could better emanate hope more fully. She had a richer vibration of hope because she had known hopelessness. It's what we were talking about earlier with the opposites in life. And so for her, the suicide was a non-issue. It was part of what she was there to learn. With others, people do suicide often because they're stuck. They're stuck at some level of energy or some feeling, whatever it is. Well, they get to come back again and they'll pick it up where they left off and they'll get another chance to learn how do you move through that kind of despair without giving up. But I'm not here to say that it's always, it's one of those tough subjects. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying everyone gets to choose and there's consequences. But it's not judgment. They're not cast. There's no such thing as hell as far as I'm concerned. They get to learn. They got stuck. They took that way out to end the life. And often they will come back fairly quickly, or they'll get healing and learn and practice and then say, okay, I can do it. Because remember, it's all free will. We're here by choice. And so they will say, okay, next, I can do it next time. I won't give up. I worked with one client I've had several who have contemplated suicide, but after the life between lives, that's off the table. They're not doing it because one of them knew that if he gave up, it would just set him back again and again and again. So it helps to be able to have that higher perspective, to not leave this earth too early. But for those who have, there's only love. There's only love. And they get to relearn it again. And it could be even more difficult the next time. Who knows?
Yeah. And do you think life plans can go off cue sometime? Yeah.
Lifetimes can go off cue because we make really bad choices. Sometimes we make bad choices. It can be something like we're eating the wrong kinds of food. We're filling up with sugar, so our brain's not working well, so we get emotional. We make bad decisions. We don't listen to our intuition, and we go off the wrong way. We get afraid, and the fear gets so overwhelming that we get stuck and do some things that end us going down a deep, dark path. addiction can be, we can get caught in things that we hadn't perhaps planned to. Or other things can go on. Other people in our lives can be off as well, and that influences us. We get caught trying to save someone who really can't be saved. And instead of focusing on who we've come to be, we put all of our time and attention and energy into someone else, and we're off. So yeah, we're never not learning. So no matter where we are in our life, there's opportunity to learn, always. There's always that way back. But yeah, we can get off. Chemicals, food, environmental stuff could be affecting people. Anything can happen.
Yeah. That's and I suppose when some of these past lives, well, life between lives as well, where they've recounted when they've gone back to the elders, and they're just as interested as in what milk chocolate tastes like, let alone the life they've lived.
Yeah, all of it. It's so much fun that this information is so available now, and so many near-death experiences with people writing about that, and now with all of this work, because I've been doing this now for 15 years, so there's so much more access to this higher consciousness. And yet, you know what I think it all keeps coming back to is we've chosen to come into this life to be who we are. We're each an individual soul, and yet we're all connected, and we're all doing our best. I don't care how it looks. We're in here doing our best based on the beliefs we have, our programming, our thinking, our choices. We're all doing our very best. And sometimes our best isn't very good, and it's not acceptable. I'm not in any way condoning people's behavior that's going on in the world, but I do know that we're all coming from the same place, and we're all going back to the same place.
And my final question is, do you see a shift taking place right now?
I see a shift. If I talk from my own life, I've seen so many more people coming for past lives in the last 6-8 years. It's been a huge turn up. Back, 15 years ago, I didn't do many of those. But now so many people are wanting to know, their souls are calling them, because it's so much more in the media now. It's in the consciousness of people to know that we're more than just who we are. All the mediumship. You have, people on front of Time magazine and magazines around the world. So it's much more accepted. It's much more spoken about. This whole consciousness shift is absolutely happening as more people are seeking to be who they've come to be. So yeah, I have great hope and faith in this human race. And all I know is it comes down to what can we each do individually to be all that we've come to be. And that's what's going to save the world, really. Coming from that place of love, of respect for ourselves and others, trying to do our best. That's all we can do.
Well, I was just going to ask you there, what's the most important message of your work? But I think you've answered it just there.
Yeah, to really go inside and to really start finding out, who am I? Who have I come to be? And then be and do that. Because if we were all doing that, I think it would be a whole lot better place here. But in the meantime, for each of us, my life is fabulous. I love my life because I have been doing so much inner work that I have this sense of I'm accomplishing what I've come here to accomplish and who I've come to be. I'm actually, before we're going, I'm here in California now for a couple of months working on my second book, and it really is all about the soul's journey. So very much about what we've talked about. The first one, Your Life's Calling, was more the belief systems. How do we, on the human level, get stuck and then unstuck and figure out our soul lessons? So this next one that'll be out later on in the year, I hope, is all that we've been talking about, the soul's journey of what's really going on for us here on planet Earth as these souls and bodies. So that's the achievement this year. But there's a sense of, this is what's being called from me. So that's why I'm doing it. We learn to say yes to what is our soul calling us to do. Say yes to that and go do that.
Absolutely, and a great part about your work as well is that people don't have to come for a one-to-one session with yourself. Is it available over Skype and by telephone?
Yes, I do Skype all over the world. I do telephone for the past lives. But the life between lives, I really want to be able to see the people. So Skype is perfect. I've done it all over the world. The time zones are sometimes a little challenging to fit in 4 hours. Like with Australia at one point, it was like a 12 or 14-hour difference, but we did it. So yeah, it's wonderful. You're just laying back. You use a headset with a microphone. You lay back and you get comfortable and you close your eyes, and it doesn't matter that I'm halfway around the world. We step into no time, no space, and we're off. And I've seen no difference in quality. Absolutely none. In fact, it's much easier because people aren't having to travel. They get to do it in the comfort of their own home. And it's just amazing what technology enables us to do now. It's so fun.
It's incredible. And just one final one. Can people get future life regressions with yourself at all?
Not with me, because other people will do that. And I believe the future's not determined yet. Even though all time is now, we're still making choices. So future lives all depends on the choices we're making now. So it can be beneficial to go and see something and then go, how did I get there? What steps do I take to get there? But I tend to I like to stay in the present time, or just the past life as it's relevant for now.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I had a future life reading, and to be honest, it kind of, I felt, forced me to want to go in that direction in a way, and I realized in the end it wasn't for my highest good.
Yeah. We're too programmable. We're all suggestible on some levels, so I prefer not to. Others can, but not my preference. Same thing back when I used to do psychic readings. I wouldn't do the future because we're still creating it. It's not determined. The future is not determined. We are creating it moment by moment. So create it good.
Absolutely. And your website as well.
It's www.nancycanning.com. And there's a lot of information about past lives, in between lives, the belief systems work, the book, and then also too, I'll be actually over in England in April, the last week in April and of 2015. So I'm available then for a couple of days. There's a short time frame when I'm available, so people can email me on my website.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin. It's been quite a pleasure. I love talking about this, as you can tell, and it's obvious you do too. So thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's all helping to get the word out that we are more than this body.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.